Hello, everyone.
Hello.
And welcome to yet another new episode in our series, The Story Behind. And today we will talk with Peter Carter from the artisan brand Centauri, and he is already here, so I will just invite him. And there he is.
Hello.
How are you doing, my friends? Nice to
How
see
are you doing? Excuse me?
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you.
So thanks for joining us. So I am Kurt. This is
Stefan. Hello.
We are the founders of the independent scent store Smell Stories in Brussels, and one of the precious brands we have in store is Centauri by Peter Carter. So welcome. So Peter, to say the least, you have quite different career path than maybe a classic perfumer would have, because if I understand it correctly, you used to be, or still are, I'm not sure, a deep diver, repairing, inspecting oil and gas pipes, so something completely different than perfume. Is it something that you still do at the moment, or is it something from the past? Or
So yeah, I mean, my original career was a commercial diver. So I worked offshore. Basically, you live on a big ship, a vessel, for a couple of months at a time, and we park up next to oil platforms, oil rigs, and we dive under the sea. And a lot of the work is either inspection work, checking welds around seams, or installing new clamps, new systems under the water, new pipelines on the seabed. And so that's been my career for offshore for about 6 years, 7 years.
okay,
And so yeah, perfume as a perfumer, that wasn't a plan. It was it's something that organically happened to me. But my original career, I worked offshore as a deep sea diver. So
yeah.
I still have those qualifications. I can go and do it whenever I like, so to speak.
Okay.
But for this past year, the first year of my brand, I've been busy enough and fortunate enough to have the support where I've not needed to do that. And this has kind of become my new career. But for me, it's there if I need it, or if I want it in the future. It's always there for me. But I'm very blessed and fortunate to be able to have a creative career. You know, perfume being a passion of mine now. So it's cool. It's get to do different things in life.
Because it's in fact it's two opposite elements of you, I think. Because when I think of deep sea diving offshore, it's kind of adventurous, dangerous, and then you have your more, let's say, spiritual side, where you are interested in arts, history, space, astronomy. You play the guitar, so there are a lot of aspects about Peter, I would say. So, is it like kind of to balance out everything in your life, or?
I don't know really. I've always been a very creative person. Like you say, I play guitar. I've played guitar for a long time, and arts and music and creativity is something that's always been natural to me. And so when I discovered perfume, and really when I delved into something, I kind of immersed myself in it quite quickly and fully. And so I guess it's another way to be creative. It's a different kind of creativity, using obviously your nose to create something, an idea that you had in your head, which isn't a smell, it's a thought, it's a concept. And to be able to make that into something and to have it, to create it, it's magic. It's like creating music on a guitar. You have a thought in your head and you create it on a guitar and create the melody. It's another aspect of creativity, I suppose. But for me, the perfume, the whole kind of brand is kind of quite Peter, so to speak, because it's a lot of my different interests kind of merged into this.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Must have been the challenge to integrate all those elements, all those inspirations, all those passions into one brand and three perfumes, and to make some kind of coherent brand about it. So it was quite a challenge, probably.
I spent a long time, a couple of years, just thinking about how I wanted to portray that and tying it all together, because I've got so many different interests and ideas. Like you say, creating a coherent brand from all of those personal interests was a little bit difficult, but I it somehow worked out. So I can give you a little bit of the concept of the brand.
Yeah, sure.
And so Centauri Perfumes is the name of the house. And Centauri, Proxima Centauri, which you'll have in the blue bottle, Proxima Centauri is actually the nearest star to our own. And so Centauri, I've always been like fascinated by space, and the vastness of the infinite universe is mind-boggling how big it is. And so Centauri, the nearest star, was my kind of fantasy of traveling out there one day as humanity and exploring new worlds and finding new life.
Okay.
And so I named the house from that Centauri because of that part of my fascination in my mind. And Proxima Centauri, the nearest star, so Proxima had to be one of the fragrances to tie that together.
Yeah, makes sense.
And Proxima represents the future. So the whole concept of the brand is through time, past, present, and future. Exactly. So we have a red bottle, a white bottle, and a blue bottle, and each one represents a different time. So the first one being the red bottle, the ruby bottles, which is past. And so this is like fire. Discovering fire was our first kind of propelled us into modern humans. And so red represents fire and represents the past. So this line, any fragrance that comes in the red bottle in the future, talking about time again, any one in the red bottle will be inspired by ancient cultures of the past and use mostly all natural materials, very heavily naturally based. And so with Dendera, this goes into Egypt. Ancient Egypt is the first in this line of past. And Dendera is a temple complex, and it's fascinating. Ancient Egypt is fascinating to me because of what they left behind is so mysterious, like the pyramids and the stone carvings that they have there, just unbelievable engineering skills and an understanding of mathematics and geometry, and it's just mind-boggling. And so Dendera, there's a carving on one of the walls in the temple in Dendera, and it's known as the Dendera light bulbs, and they look like light bulbs.
Exactly.
And that my kind of fantasy brain was like, did they have electricity? Like, what's this crazy? That's my wild imagination, of course. But so that was the inspiration for Dendera, was just the beauty and mystery of ancient Egypt, really. So when you smell Dendera, to quickly talk about it.
And have you been there? Have you been to the temple?
I have been to. I've not been to Dendera temple itself, but I have been to Egypt. I'd like to go back further south and see that, but I've been to Cairo and Luxor, and I've been around the pyramids, and it's so inspiring just to see it and be in the presence of it. But when you smell Dendera, to me, it should smell like a stone temple in the desert. It's hot and dry. Yeah. So when I would describe the fragrance, it's hot and it's dry. Yeah. So you get cinnamon, cinnamon and nutmeg and the warming spices. There's an incense accord with ambers. I use a lot of myrrh in this one, so you should smell the myrrh. And then the dryness also comes from orris butter, which has that lovely kind of dry powderiness. And this Vietnamese oud I used, and the combination, I would say, of the oud and the orris and the spices just gives this kind of rich dryness, which to me encapsulates Egypt in a nutshell, really. And so Dendera, if you like spicy, ambery, incensey, dry fragrances that will, to me, it transports you when you smell it, and hopefully you might get that too. When you smell it, you can picture that kind of vibe.
Exactly. It's a really visual perfume. And it's indeed remarkable the dryness that you get into it, because it's normally, when you think about it, a perfume, you say it's floral or oriental or powdery, but this is really dry, so it's really just it's like mythical
dry
stuff.
sand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sand. Yeah, it's really remarkable. So so this is a completely natural perfume, I believe.
The only thing that's not completely natural in that one is the cinnamon, which is a kind of a recreation cinnamon for the allergens for IFRA. But everything else is all natural in Dendera. So real oud, there's real Indian sandalwood, real orris butter. So it's a high quality perfume. It's packed full of naturals.
And is it easy to get hold on these ingredients? Like the Vietnamese oud is very mythical ingredients. It's also very precious. It's very difficult to make. So it must be quite a challenge to get hold of all these precious ingredients and to.
It's not so much a massive challenge, but it's expensive. So buying them in any kind of quantity is a very expensive. They're very expensive natural materials. Is the only downside, because when you're launching a brand and your money is a bit tight, that's quite a challenge. But I feel it's worth it, because when you have such quality materials, they speak for themselves, and you can smell the quality. And that's what I wanted with that fragrance, and with that line in general is high quality. And so,
why wood from Vietnam?
Sorry?
Why wood from Vietnam?
So different ouds from different regions have different profiles. Like Thai oud can be very fruity. Cambodian, a little bit similar, fruity kind of floral kind of notes. The oud that I have from Vietnam it has a slight earthiness, which is why I chose it, kind of a slight dryness, but it has that rich kind of typical woody oud profile without having any of the what you might call the funky or the barnyard aspects of certain ouds that might be off-putting to some people. The oud that I use doesn't have those new kind of nuances. It's a very palatable oud, but it has that kind of dry quality and that kind of rich woodiness that I was looking for.
Okay.
So like I say, different regions give different profiles in terms of the oil, but that one just matched what I was looking for, really. So.
Okay. So I guess that you produce the perfumes in rather small batches.
Yeah.
Can you give an idea on, if you make a batch, how many perfumes that you make?
So in general, for a batch is around 3 liters of perfume, finished perfume, which isn't very many. And so obviously you make 3 liters at a time. I'm only on the second round of batches, so to speak. So, they are limited kind of numbers.
Okay, and if you make a new batch and you have to buy new ingredients, can they change a little bit?
Ideally, when you make a perfume, you try to make sure that the materials are sustainable, so you can keep using the same ones. And so for that, I've done that, so I can recreate them exactly the same, unless the supply chain disappears, in which case I would have to find a replacement oud, for example. But hopefully, I mean, it's a farm sustainable, so it should be okay.
It can continue. There are a lot of restrictions and regulations around perfumery and ingredients that you can use or cannot use, or in the quantity you can use. I mean, was it a big challenge to create what you wanted, or?
It is a challenge to make it exactly the way you want it, because you have to bear in mind the restrictions. Like rose, for example, is quite heavily restricted to use natural rose absolutes, and so it's something that you have to work around. For me, an analogy would be a painter being told he can only use 12% of the color blue. It's something that you have in the back of your head. Like, I've got to be careful with how much of that color that I use. So I guess if those rules weren't in place, I might do something a little bit more, different. But I guess it's part of the creativity process to do what you can with your available.
So So there's also making perfumes is also a lot of administration and legal stuff that you have to take care of. That probably.
Yeah, there's a lot of paperwork you have to do, and you're getting the perfumes approved and safety certificates and EU portals and all sorts of things like that, which is maybe a little bit of a headache for people, but you kind of manage.
Being creative and being very with paperwork and all these things. Normally, those two don't really combine very well in one person. So
yeah, I mean, I'm blessed in the sense that I literally do everything myself. There's nothing that I pay other people to do. It's all me.
Yeah.
Even like the whole conceptual design and the art design and the photographs and the bottle and the lid, like the whole thing, like is just me. But it took years to get that down.
Probably,
Going back into the concept of the brand, so like we say, the red bottle being the past, and mostly natural. My voice is croaking up. Excuse me.
I hear it.
There we go.
You can drink something if you want.
The next one is the white bottle, which is present moment. So the brand in general, past, present, future, is the conceptual idea of the house. And so anything that comes in the white bottle would be present day. The first one, which I'm holding there, is Gaia. Gaia is basically the goddess Mother Earth. And for me, there's nothing more precious than the earth. You know, it's our home, it's where we live, it's what gave birth to us in this infinite universe. We find ourselves on this little blue dot. And we have to look after it because our home is the only home we've got. And the present moment, like you only ever experience the present moment. That's all we ever have. Like the past is a memory and the future is an imagination. And the present moment, Earth, it's what I wanted to do for the first fragrance and to pay respect to our home. And so with Gaia, it's all about kind of encapsulating, I guess, how I think of the Earth is it's in perfect order and harmony and balance of biodiversity. And when you look at the Earth, it's mind-blowing how all that is intricately, perfectly connected and relying on each other. We all rely on each other. We rely on the trees for oxygen. Everything's connected. The mycelium network under the ground it's unbelievable. And all these different animals, and they all rely on each other. And my voice is going. Let me take a sip of water. Excuse me, sorry.
No problem.
And so, so when you smell Gaia, it starts up to give you the impression of Mother Earth. You get green leaves. I used a material called wormwood. Wormwood is very unusual. It's quite herbal, dark green, slightly woody, and so you get this dark herbal green quality. There's also a green leaf accord, like an ivy accord, so you get green leaves, you get herbal kind of tones. I also used a soil note. It's a material called geosmin, and it gives this impression of fresh soil, literally soil. And so you get this opening of green soil, forest, trees, and for me that encapsulates Earth in a nutshell. As it transitions into the mid, it has 3 different stages, but the mid stage goes a little bit more floral. Tuberose is the main floral in this one. Tuberose Absolute, natural tuberose with orris splitter, again, the same orris splitter that I actually used in Dendera. And so you get this harmony of florals coming up through the mid, which is combined with a honey note. And the honey, the bees are so important, and I don't think we don't appreciate just how critically important they are. They pollinate everything, and it's huge. And so I wanted honey to be an aspect of an important aspect of this fragrance. And so it starts off green, leafy, soily, transitioning into the flowers. Imagining going into the meadow after just being in the forest. And the orris and the honey. as it dries down, there's this ambergris accord. There's a little bit of musk as well in here. And the ambergris gives a salty kind of wateriness. And the tail end of the dry down, I get this kind of accord that goes into a salty, musky, watery kind of quality from the ambergris, still lingering with the honey and the soil. And it's quite a unique dry down that's quite addictive to me. I keep wanting to smell more of it. And so for me, it's like a transition between starting in a forest, in the trees and the soil, moving into a meadow, into the flowers and the honey, and then transitioning to the sea at the end.
Okay, so it's a whole journey across the globe. Yeah, okay.
And so Gaia, Mother Earth, that was the kind of inspiration for this fragrance.
That smells a bit like how I would imagine paradise to smell like something. Yeah, yeah. And was there a particular place that you had in mind when you created the fragrance, or is it more like your imagination of how the ideal Mother Earth would smell like something, or?
Yeah, not a specific location, but in general, the inspiration of, like I say, biodiversity and the harmony of the way that everything is reliant on each other on this planet, and how important it is to look after it. And that harmony and biodiversity and the imagination of, you know, we're reliant on the trees for oxygen, and we're reliant on the bees to pollinate everything, and all of those kind of aspects coming together. So I selected those kind of notes to create that kind of story of it all.
Yeah, yeah.
We need
so it's a perfume with a message, indeed, to protect what we have and protect the house we live on or live in. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Exactly. I mean, as humans, we take it for granted every day because we wake up and we don't really think about it because we get lost in our own little bubble. But it's the most important thing, because without looking after it, it's not going to end well. We have to look after it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
We're reliant on it.
couldn't agree more. Or we have to be able to move to Centauri or something. To the future then. Yeah.
So that's perfect segue, I guess, into the next fragrance.
Yeah.
And so the last one in the line is based on the future. So red bottle, past, all natural. The white bottle is present moment, which is 50-50 mixed media. So it uses naturals and it uses synthetics.
Maybe another question: why did you use the color white for the present?
Sure. So white to me is the modern age. If you think of iPhones, laptops, iPads, Tesla cars, everything's kind of either white or black these days in terms of technology. And so for me, that's why present moment, I think of iPhones, I think of laptops, Apple Macs. You know, a lot of them we're using white plastic all the time. Okay. And so that was the idea for the
Okay.
So with the blue bottle, for the color of the blue, that's like sky, going into the sky and going into space. Yeah. So
clear too. Yeah.
Yeah, the concept of the future for me is where we become a spacefaring civilization properly, where we actually venture out into the stars as a civilization, hopefully peacefully, and and so the blue represents that.
Depends on the aliens we will encounter, maybe over there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so Proxima Centauri being the nearest star, obviously that's somewhere we might likely venture towards at some point, given the technology of reaching there. And so really the future line is quite fantasy based, imagination based. And so Proxima is, to me, the dreamlike idea of a new world. And so it was actually made to a piece of music and an image. The piece of music is called Night Sky by Tracy Chataway, and if you YouTube that, you will find the piece of music. It's a very ambient, a little bit melancholy, but very, very beautiful, emotional kind of music. And the image of it was there was like what I pictured as a young person wearing a space helmet, and he was stood on top of a hill looking at a valley, and there's kind of a city illuminated in the valley, a little town all lit up, and then the sky filled with stars. And to me, it was like, it wasn't Earth, it was like another planet, another place.
Okay.
And in my imagination, listening to the music and looking at the image, I imagined like an explorer, a space traveler, and he'd flown down in his little spaceship and landed, and this is the first time he's seen this planet. And it's my dream-like kind of idea of that.
Okay.
And so when you smell it, you get this kind of airy freshness, a bright kind of invigorating. And for me, that was like the fresh air of this new world. So there's grapefruit, there's fruits, there's blackcurrant and strawberry, there's different kinds of fruity tones. You get fruity kind of airy light, almost slightly fizzy champagne-like, bubbly a little bit. Yeah. And to me, that was just like crisp, fresh air of somewhere new and exciting. And really, this perfume is exactly that. It's like fruity, musky, woody. I used a little bit of iris. There's a little bit of musk and sandalwood and combination of fruits and kind of light ozonic notes. And it's just about that kind of fantasy of exploring a new world and breathing in that air for the first time, really. It's an interesting fragrance. I think it's quite unique. I can't compare it to other fragrances.
Exactly.
Personally.
We just had the question coming in. Which one of the three you prefer?
Which one do I prefer?
Yeah.
That's a difficult question, I guess.
It depends on my mood and also the weather, because I do really like Proxima, but for me this is a summertime spring fragrance. And so if it's not bright, summery, kind of warm outside, I wouldn't reach for that personally. But with Dendera, perfect for a day like today here in the UK where it's covered in snow and cold. Dendera is rich, warm, spicy, dry. It warms you up. So I like all of them for different reasons.
It's quite interesting because I had a customer coming by today to test the three fragrances, and we were talking about the season and then which fragrance you wear. And people tend to wear lighter or fresher fragrances in summer and more warm in winter. But on the other hand, I think Dendera is inspired by one of the warmest places on Earth. So it's really the heat, the sand. So I think you could also wear it in summer because it's inspired by the sun and the desert and very dusty, sandy environment. Yeah.
I would say if you do that, maybe spray a little bit less than you would in the winter.
Yeah, probably.
It might be a little bit cloying if you put too much on. But sure, I mean, that in ancient Egypt, they made perfume and they were built around frankincense, myrrh, spices, the same things I'm using in Dendera.
Exactly.
The materials I chose are not an accident, Cinnamon and myrrh and frankincense are all used then. They wore it in that high heat.
It's a tribute to the ancient culture of the first perfumes, I think, where they use all these ingredients that were as expensive as gold at the time. So, it's quite precious. I have another question. You also, a couple of years ago, you started your own YouTube channel, Fragrance View, where you started reviewing perfumes, amongst other things. And I was just wondering if you are a reviewer and then you decide to create your own brand. Isn't there a lot of pressure on you of people really watching very closely what you're doing? I think of it like a movie critic who starts making his own movie. It seems to me like quite difficult to do that because.
I mean, I started my YouTube channel, I'm not actually sure how many years ago, maybe 5 years ago, at an educated guess. And so that came first. I was a fragrance reviewer first, but at this parallel to that, I was learning how to make perfume self-taught, you know, and buying tons of essential oils and absolutes and synthetics, and just learning out of my own curiosity. Like when I get into something, like I want to understand it more. And so they kind of progressed at the same time, but because of how kind of my natural creativity of like just enjoying creating things, even 4 or 5 years ago, I was coming up with brand names and what the bottle would look like, just because I enjoy doing that. I enjoy drawing ideas out, and that's fun for me, is just creating things. And I was printing labels off 4 years ago, and making my own little blends of things, and it just kind of organically developed that way. But I would say, yeah, in terms of maybe a little bit of pressure being a reviewer and a perfumer, because I guess there's more eyes on me, so to speak, a little bit. I would say I already have an audience, so to speak, and I'm quite a picky reviewer. That I don't always love all the perfumes I smell. I'm quite
exactly. So you really give your honest opinion.
Yeah, not all of my reviews are even positive. Sometimes they're negative. And so I feel like sometimes that can come back towards me, because people might have a certain expectation of me, and then when they smell it, some people might be quick to say something negative, so to speak. Not all that, that's few and far between, but things like that I don't really worry myself about. I don't try to think about that, to be honest, because in general my audience is incredible. Like, I have such supportive audience that are really genuinely kind and amazing people, that I go with the love of that. I mean, that you try not to dwell on any kind of negativity, so to speak. It's
it doesn't really help to move you forward, I think, if you try and look at that.
And in terms of carrying on with reviewing, like, I'm just honest. I try to be as honest as I can, and I think people just know that about me. And if they don't trust my opinion, so to speak, as a reviewer, then there's no obligation to watch me or support me, or I don't ask that of anybody. So I just honestly give an opinion, because that's what I enjoy doing, and at the same time I enjoy making my own fragrances, and they kind of marry up quite well for me. I think it feels organic and natural, and it doesn't feel forced in any way. So I feel very blessed that way, that I'm fortunate enough to be able to do both, and it work.
Okay. We got several questions in regarding, are you planning any new collaborations or any new fragrances?
Yes. So I've got a couple of new fragrances. One is called Anthea, and it will be in the white bottle there. And Anthea is the Greek goddess of flowers. So it's going to be a more floral perfume. I'm not going to give too much away, because I like to have surprises for people. But it will be a beautiful, slightly more feminine floral perfume. And like I say, it will be in the white present day collection, and I'm excited about it. It has a feminine charm to it. I think it could be unisex for some people, but with the floral elements, some men are a little bit turned off by that. So it depends on kind of how you feel about florals, I suppose. But for me, I'm enjoying it, and I think hopefully people will like it. The next
fragrance already is ready, so you have the perfume.
Almost. I have different trial versions of it. It's not been submitted yet, but it's close to being, and I'm just slightly tinkering, kind of fine tuning it. But it's almost done. It shouldn't be too long before that's ready. And the next one would be called Elixir, and I'm not fully sure how I'm going to play Elixir yet, so I'm not going to give too much away on that. But I, as part of the past, present, future, I also have a timeless collection, which I raise money for charity, and I kind of do a raffle ticket, so to speak, and 100% of the money I donate to charity. The first one was to Liberia Chimpanzee Rescue, and it's a beautiful couple called Jenny and Jimmy Desmond that rescue baby chimpanzees in Liberia. They have an incredible sanctuary, and we raised close to £2,000, which was amazing. But I make a one-off, unique, bespoke perfume for one person. That they win that if when your name's pulled out of the hat, so to speak.
Okay.
And so I made one for the second time, which was built around this kind of caramel chocolate dipped rose theme. And it was so good that I thought I want to do a riff on it, make it a little bit different so it's not the same, but I'm working on this kind of more gourmandy thing, and the word elixir and potion, and just I think it's going to work quite well, but that'll be maybe a little bit further down the line, and Thea will be before that.
Okay. Yeah.
And in terms of collaborations, I just did one with Ensar Oud, which unfortunately I couldn't supply to stockists because of I wanted to keep the cost lower, because the wild oud in that was ridiculously, wild and expensive. But I may do some more like that in the future, but they would be specific to my website, unfortunately.
Okay.
But, yeah. So those are the future plans.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe another question. One of your films on YouTube that you have, I think it's about 2 years ago that you posted a YouTube movie which had the title, let me see, Why Niche Fragrances Suck. So, and it's one I really like. I still watch it quite regularly. So that was about 2 years ago. How did you see? What's your view on this now? How did you see this the industry of perfumery changing, or?
It's difficult to answer. Basically, I suppose now that I'm in the seat of a brand owner and I understand price structure and the way that it is, whereas a normal reviewer that doesn't have that inside knowledge might not quite understand why the way things are. So I think my opinion would change slightly, but it still applies to certain. I think it's difficult being a brand owner and a perfumer and a reviewer and a critic at the same time, because it looks like you're trying to be negative on other brands, which you kind of want to avoid.
Sure.
When it comes to the idea of niche perfume sucks, the idea was essentially,
thank you.
Not all brands, but some brands may take a little liberty in the way it's promoted or the materials and the pricing. If you're paying £700 for a bottle and you smell it and you think, is that really worth £700 a bottle, or are you paying for the brand image, the name that is on the label? And that kind of thing, for me, I understand it from a prestige kind of point of view, but at the same time, as a customer, it kind of itches you a little bit, because you're like, but it's how you want to spend your money, isn't it? If that perfume is worth it to you, then who is anyone to say any different? But as a consumer myself, I buy my own perfume. There's things that I would avoid because I would smell it and I would just not see the value in it. And so when I do my branding, I try to do it as fairly as I can. Every price is different for every creation that I make, based on the cost of the formula. So whereas some brands might have a set price for the whole thing, where they might have more quality in one but less in another, but they're the same price. I don't like doing that. It wants to be fair for the so.
Yeah, okay. So that's why the Dendera is the most expensive one, because of ingredients, the
natural oud, Indian sandalwood, orris butter, rose, Bulgarian rose. All of these things, when you're adding them together, and white ambergris, real ambergris tincture, it gets expensive quickly. And
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay. you also designed the cap yourself?
Yeah.
Which is just a masterpiece. I think it's really like a jewel, and I think it weighs even more than the bottle itself.
Yeah, the cap is heavy.
Yeah.
So I can tell you a little bit about the cap.
Mm.
There's some hidden details in there which I haven't actually told anybody. I might give it away on this live stream. I'm not sure yet. The design, for anyone that's familiar with the Mayan calendar, is very heavily influenced by the Mayan calendar.
Okay.
And ancient culture, I'm fascinated by all of that. And if you look at these patterns and you look at the Mayan calendar, you will be familiar with the way that that's designed.
Okay.
And the lid, the actual top part, is a star.
Yeah.
And obviously Centauri is the nearest star system. Centauri, Proxima Centauri is the nearest star. Star is the symbol or the logo of the brand.
Mm-hmm.
This particular star, though, was carved in stone in ancient Sumeria by the Sumerians thousands of years ago.
Okay.
So my logo is a direct copy of an image carved in stone thousands of years ago from another very, very mysterious civilization. They basically invented mathematics and science and language, and predating, Egyptians, and it just fascinates my brain. I just kind of wish I could have seen it, understand what was happening there. So the lid is based around that.
Yeah. Okay.
For the design, the secret.
Is there a detail that we should?
The secret little kind of nuance that I didn't really disclose, but I will tell you. There's a Nikola Tesla reference in here. And so Nikola Tesla, I mean, just a genius. And so one of the quotes of Nikola Tesla was, if you only understood the importance of 369, you would have the key to the universe, paraphrasing there. And so 369 is embodied in this. If you count the way things are laid out, you will realize everything is laid out in 3s, 6s, and 9s, the whole thing. I did that specifically on purpose. So, like, if you look at this little symbol there on this row, there's 1, 2, 3. And then if you count the pyramids, they all add up in 3, 6, and 9s. And even the bit on the top, it's 3 there, 3 there, 3 there. So they're in sets of 3s and it adds up to 9. And the star itself, coincidentally, is also based on 3, 6, 9 if you add up the... So that's a secret little kind of... I didn't really announce that when I launched the brand, but that was my own kind of wanting to read a little secrecy kind of into there, because I'm a bit nerdy, I suppose.
Well, I kind of guess that nothing on the bottle was just done by accident, because you really pay attention to every little detail yourself. So I kind of imagine that everything that was on the cap or on the bottle had some meaning or some deeper meaning for you. So thanks for sharing that with us.
To actually, just to share a little bit, to actually do that, to have it work in 3, 6s, and 9s, the whole thing took me months to be drawing it and redesign and figuring out how can you get everything into 3, 6, and 9s. It's actually very difficult to do. So, but yeah, it worked out.
Yeah, okay. Maybe another question. I think the Dendera one is announced on your website as the extrait de parfum, so the extract. The others are the eau de parfum. So I think that this one has the highest concentration of perfume oil then probably, or is it like a legal term that you can use, or is it just a choice that you can make, or how does it work?
So there's different ways that you can do extract. There's no legal obligation. You can call it anything you want. But there's like there's kind of a number line of what kind of goes into extract an EDP. And so for some people, the end of EDP or the parfum might be 15 to 18%. Yeah. And that's the high end of EDP. Yeah. The beginning being about 8 to 10%. Extrait typically is 18-20% over and above.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, but there's also a way of doing it in terms of, if it's, say, on the borderline of those numbers, you can either say it's EDP or you can say it's X-ray. And how you decide that is how long it lasts for one, the longevity of it, and how high impact the materials are, like how hard is it hitting you in the face when you smell it.
For the projection or that,
yeah. I mean, Dendera and Gaia have very close percentages, yet Gaia I listed as EDP. I could have technically put Gaia as X-straight because it's over 18%, but I purposely put it as EDP, even though it's very long lasting. For me, Gaia is 12 hours on my skin, but it's not quite as in your face as Dendera. So I chose EDP to be more conservative, I suppose.
But it's a choice that you can personally make it. There's
Yes.
no kind of regulation that says it has to be contained this and this to be able to be, okay.
It's your guide to the customer, basically.
Yeah.
You know, so like I say, in general, all my perfumes are over 18%. So technically, I mean, even Proxima is 18%. So all of them I could list as X-straight if I wanted to, because technically they're all between 18 and 20%.
Yeah.
But I choose to label the other ones as EDP because they're a little bit lighter in terms of the scent. So it's your own personal judgment on how they are for me. Because I mean, you could make an X-straight citrus fragrance that could, it could maybe last 3 or 4 hours on your skin. Do you really want to call that X-straight? It might technically be X-straight, but it's not giving you the performance of an X-straight. Then you would want to label it something else.
Because if you use the label, people get some expectations from it, of course. Yeah,
exactly.
To last longer or whatever. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you still buy other perfumes then? Well, you review them, so you still don't always wear your own perfume. So you.
No, I still love perfumes. I still buy perfumes from other brands. I support other brands. You know, on my channel, if I find something I really love, I'll support them. I'll say, this is fantastic. You've got to check this out. I have no kind of competitive kind of edge that way. Like I just did a top 10 winter fragrance list. I could have put Dendera on there because it's the perfect winter fragrance. I just dropped my lid there. I didn't put it on. I completely don't talk about my own brand that way. And I talk about other brands. You know, there's so many amazing, talented perfumers out there that, like I say, I don't feel any competition with any of them because I think we all have our place. We're all, we're all artists and we're all inspired by the same things. And I try to be from that point of view.
And which perfumers do you really admire or look up to at the moment?
So there's a brand called Fortin Manley, an Australian brand, and the perfume is called Rasse Fort. I've met him in person, and he's just such a cool, laid-back guy, and his perfumes are awesome. I have a couple of them here. Boshnikov, Purple Hats. You know, I love it. It's got lavender, oud, chocolatey vibes, amazing. And so he's one of my favorite perfumers. I respect him. I love his work. One example of, I've got a bookcase here of other brands. Well, there's one of mine, but a lot of other brands. I am a perfume lover, so I do obviously wear other brands.
Yeah. So if you have so many perfumes and you know so many perfumes, is it then difficult to find your own language or your own, let's say, your vision, your signature on what defines Centauri or what defines the fragrances that come from your nose, let's say?
I think you naturally find your own style, so to speak. That's kind of just an accident of my own personal taste, I would say. And your own personal, because as a perfumer, you make something to your taste. You go, oh, I like that. And you balance it to your own taste of your nose and your mind. And so I would say the style of the perfumer is I suppose, really the taste of the perfumer. It's just your natural ingrained taste of your own personality. And so the style is kind of inherently natural, but I would say the difficulty then lies in, like you say, there's so many perfumes, there's millions of perfumes. And as a reviewer, as someone who smells a lot of perfume, you're aware of obviously what's out there, and it is actually quite difficult to make something original because so much has been done already. But actually, it's a challenge to make something different. It is difficult, and so there I think lies the real challenge of being original. It's not particularly easy.
But maybe it's a bit the same with every creative job. Like if you want to write a song, well, there are trillions of different songs that already exist. So yeah, it's becoming quite difficult to find still something new. And it's the same with perfume. It's also playing with accords and notes. It's a bit the same.
Yeah, exactly. So like with music, you have a set number of chords, you know, and so and chord progressions. And so, you know, how many times can you use the same chord progression for different lyrics? Like, and the perfume have got a set number of oils to play with. So, you know, it is a challenge to be completely original. And not many people will manage to be completely original. It is very difficult. But I do my best just to do what's to my taste and what I think is different enough, should I say. Like when I smell Gaia, like when I smell Gaia and Proxima, I can't personally, I mean, some people might, but I can't directly compare them and say, well, it smells like this. I mean, there's certain aspects, I suppose, like there's other perfumes that use a soil note, for example, that's not completely unique. But the way that the composition as a whole works together, I think is. But it's finding a balance and, I guess, pleasing your own taste and your own nose and satisfying your own creativity. And when you're settled on that, you just hope other people will connect to it. Not everyone will. You just do your best. So basically.
Okay. Did we get?
We've already asked. No, we didn't get any other questions
from the. Was there something that you wanted to share with us still today? How do you look at the future?
I don't know where the future's going. I think it's a little because I have to follow IFRA regulations and cosmetic laws, and like if they get stricter, which will be out of my hands, out of my control, then it becomes even difficult. I mean, you're even more of a challenge because your palette's shrinking all the time, and it's, you know, it becomes a challenge, obviously. So if that gets worse over the years, it might put more pressure. Hopefully it doesn't get too bad. In general, I'm quite optimistic, and I don't know in terms of, for me, as an artist or a creative person, like I don't know what my taste will be in a year's time. I don't know where my mind will be in a year's time. So I don't know my own progression. That's for me is an organic, natural thing that will just go the way it goes. So I try not to think too much in advance that way. But I take my time with my blends. I don't rush. Since I launched over a year ago, I only released one more fragrance in that whole 12 months, and so, which was a limited edition. So I mean, you can see that I don't rush things. I take my time, and so that will always be the case. I'm not going to be someone who's launching 20 fragrances every year. I can't do that. And so I take my time. I'll when I'm happy with something, it will be released, and hopefully people will like it.
Okay, good. And will the release date because all the first perfumes that you released were really released on a very specific moment, being solstice. Is it something that you will stick to?
That depends on the timing of when the formula is ready, and when if I'm getting ready to launch a fragrance and it's close to that date, you know, within about 3-4 weeks of that date, I will hold back and I will release it on that day. Just to make it extra special. So that's lined up twice so far, and so I did that with Chambeau with the limited edition oud fragrance. But that's kind of if it's close to an equinox or something, then I will do that just for the sake of doing it, because that's fun. But if not, if it's not in time with that, then I you know, it's ready when it's ready. So
Yeah.
it's the natural
Is
kind of
perfume for
organic
you
way that it goes.
mainly? Yeah. Okay. Is perfume making for you like a very serious thing, or is it also having fun mostly, or is it both aspects?
Yeah, it can be both. In general, I like to be a little bit more playful and fun with it, and creativity. Like I will put music on. I'll look at certain pictures. Like if I've got an image in my head, you know, I will look at pictures that relate to that and have put appropriate music on and try and get in the zone and kind of play around with it. But then in the back of my mind, there is a seriousness because I'm aware that there's an audience that has a certain expectation of me that I have to kind of meet. And, you know, I do feel a little bit like there's something behind me looking at me going, is that good enough? Do you need to do a little bit more? What are people going to say? Like, so there's a little bit of pressure, but I try to keep it light for my own soul to breathe a little bit, because I think if you go too far in that, it's too much pressure. You thinking about, you know, judgments of other people or criticisms, or if people are going to like it, like it would stop you from doing anything. So I try to keep it playful and light, and when it's ready, and I try to, if I'm satisfied with it in my heart, then it doesn't matter if someone doesn't like it, because, you know, that's their personal taste. You know, I don't like pineapple on my pizza, but some people do, you know.
That's not real pizza, but anyways. I think our time is almost up because Instagram will cut the broadcast in 3 minutes, so I think we could still go on talking forever. But so it was really interesting. Thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge and your opinion and about the inspiration behind everything. So it's really insightful for us. So thank you very much, and we will try to
talk to you. I appreciate it.
To translate the same positive message to all our customers in the future. So thank you very much. I wish you the best of luck with the new curations. We're looking forward to it. And well, if one day you're always welcome to visit us in Brussels. Maybe not now because it's not possible, but
sometime in the future, hopefully.
Sometime in the future, sometime in Centauri, Proxima, whatever. Okay.
Thanks to the audience, everybody.
Thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you very much. Lovely to talk to you.
For the comments.
Thank you.